She came home at 4 a.m. with a guy's number on her hand. I asked for an explanation. She snapped, "I don't owe you anything. Trust me or leave." I just smiled. The next morning, I put up a "Leaving My Cheater" sale outside our house and sold all her designer stuff for bargain prices. Her reaction when she came home and saw half the neighborhood walking away with her stuff. I never thought I'd be the guy posting something like this, but a lot of you asked for details after I comment on another thread. And honestly, writing out feels like the cleanest way to close the door on a chapter one should have ended sooner. So here it goes, all of it, messy and uncomfortable and strangely satisfying in hindsight. My name's Ethan. I'm 34. I work as a systems analyst for a healthcare software company. Steady job, good benefits, nothing flashy, but I make enough to live comfortably and not stress over every bill, which is probably why I ignore a lot of warning signs for longer than I should have. I own a 3-bedroom house in a quiet suburban neighborhood. Bought it on my own 4 years ago. My name on the deed, my mortgage, my responsibility, my sanctuary, or at least it used to be. My ex, Lauren, 30, worked in brand marketing at a lifestyle agency downtown, very social, very image-focused. The kind of person who knows which shoes are trending 6 months before anyone else, which is fine. Except her salary didn't really match the lifestyle she curated. And I told myself that wasn't my business because she was an adult and could spend her money how she wanted. We've been together a little over 3 years, and about 8 months in, she started leaving things at my place. First a toothbrush, then a drawer, then a few outfits for work, then heels, then coats, then bags. And eventually my guest room turned into what I jokingly called Lauren's showroom. Except it wasn't really a joke anymore. She still technically had her apartment with a roommate named Ashley, but Lauren hated it there. Said Ashley borrowed her stuff without asking. Complained about cramped closets, bad lighting, and how her clothes deserved better storage, which I now hear as one long siren in retrospect. She never paid rent at my place, never contributed to utilities, sometimes bought groceries, occasionally cooked dinner, and I told myself that love didn't need to be transactional, that I was being generous, that this was just what adult relationships look like when one person had more space. Over time, I noticed most of her designer purchases lived under my roof. Tens of thousands of dollars worth of handbags, shoes, dresses, jewelry, all neatly arranged, climate-controlled, protected from sunlight, like a museum exhibit dedicated to bad financial decisions, many of which I later learned were financed. But again, I didn't press because pressing felt like mistrust, and mistrust felt like the opposite of love, or so I thought. The night everything cracked open was a Friday. I remember because I was on call for late deployment. Sitting at my desk in sweatpants, headphones on, triple checking code while Lauren got ready to go out with co-workers, tight dress, perfect makeup, the kind of effort she used to put into date nights with me before those slowly disappeared. She said they were celebrating a promotion, kissed me quickly, told me not to wait up, and left around 8. And I didn't think much of it because she'd been going out a lot lately, and I didn't want to be the guy who counted hours or asked too many questions. Midnight came and went. The deployment finished smoothly. I texted her to see how the night was going. No response. An hour later I called voicemail. By 2 a.m. I wasn't worried, just annoyed, because living together, even unofficially, comes with a baseline level courtesy. And by 4 a.m. when I heard a car pull up, my annoyance had hardened into something sharper. Lauren walked in smiling too wide, eyes glassy, makeup smudged, hair tangled. The smell of alcohol trailing behind her like a confession, and she launched into a story about how fun the night was and how late they stayed out. And I almost let it slide until I noticed the blue ink on her hand, a phone number written there, bold and unmistakable, like the universe underlining the moment for me. I asked what it was calmly, genuinely open to an explanation, and she tried to wipe it off, laughed it off, said some guy wrote it down but she didn't want it, that she told him she had a boyfriend, and something about the way she said it felt rehearsed, flimsy. And when I asked why she let him write in the first place, her expression changed, the warmth vanished, and she snapped, sharp and defensive, that she didn't owe me anything, that I should trust her or leave. And in that moment, something inside me clicked into place. Not anger, not sadness, just clarity. I smiled, which confused her, and told her she was right, that trust was important, and that if I couldn't trust her, then we shouldn't be together. And when she tried to backpedal, tried to soften it, I told her I meant it, that we were done, that this was my house, and that she needed to leave. She laughed at first, called me dramatic, said we'd talk in the morning, then went to bed like nothing had happened, but I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, replayed the conversation, replayed the last few months, the late nights, the secrecy, the subtle shifts, and instead of spiraling, I did what I always do when things feel out of control. I researched. I looked up property laws in my state, specifically about belongings left in a residence after a relationship ends, and I learned that when someone stores property in your home without a lease, without paying rent, and the relationship is terminated, you can give written notice to retrieve those belongings, and if they don't, that property can be considered abandoned. Around 5 a.m., I drafted an email, clear and professional, stating that our relationship had ended, referencing her words, asking her to remove her belongings within 24 hours, and outlining what would happen if she didn't, and I sent it. Heard her phone buzz from the bedroom, and felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. At 6 a.m., she woke up, put on her running clothes, told me we'd talk later, said she wasn't reading emails, and left. And that's when I stood in the doorway of the guest room, surrounded by racks of designer clothing and shelves of handbags, and realized I was done being the caretaker of someone else's lifestyle. By 7 a.m., I dragged folding tables out of the garage, borrowed a couple from my neighbor Mark after explaining the situation, and he laughed so hard, he almost dropped one, telling me I was a legend already. I organized everything meticulously, shoes lined up, bags displayed, dresses folded, jewelry in trays. And I made signs, big ones, announcing a moving sale, designer items. Everything must go, and then the final sign, the one that told the story in plain language, the one that explained exactly why the sale existed. By 8 a.m., people started stopping, first neighbors and friends of neighbors, curiosity turning into excitement as they realized the prices were real, that the bags were authentic, that this wasn't a prank. And every time someone read the sign, I watched their faces change, shock, sympathy, judgment, then decision, because a $2,000 bag for $100 has a way of quieting moral debates. The money piled up quickly, cash in a lockbox, Venmo notifications buzzing, and I answered questions honestly, calmly, repeating the facts without embellishment. Around 10 a.m., Lauren's car screeched into the driveway, and she exploded out of it, face flushed, eyes wild, phone in hand, screaming my name, demanding to know what I'd done, and the entire street went silent, phones raised, neighbors watching like it was a live show, and I told her the truth, that her things were being sold, that she'd been notified, that she chose not to retrieve them, and that actions have consequences. She screamed about the police, called me names, threatened lawsuits, but when the officer arrived and reviewed the email, the text, the timestamps, he told her it was a civil matter and that I hadn't broken the law. And I watched reality settling on her face like a weight. Her friend Megan showed up at some point, the same friend she always ran with, holding a shopping bag, sheepish but firm, admitting she bought a bracelet because she didn't support cheating. And that was the moment Lauren truly broke, screaming at everyone, accusing me of humiliation, of cruelty, of overreacting. And maybe she was right about one thing. It was humiliating, but it wasn't unprovoked, and it wasn't random. It was a direct result of her choices, colliding with boundaries she assumed I'd never enforce. By noon, everything was gone, every item sold. The driveway empty, my phone heavy with deposits, and Lauren sitting on the curb, crying, calling me a monster, asking for her stuff back, and I told her it was gone, that the chapter was closed, and that I hoped she learned something from it, though I didn't expect her to. In the weeks that followed, she tried everything, threats, guilt, lawyers, sob stories, but every conversation ended the same way, with documentation, with facts, with silence on my end, and eventually it all stopped. Months later, I ran into a co-worker of hers at a coffee shop who confirmed what I already knew, that the number on her hand belonged to a guy she'd been seeing for months, that the nights out weren't innocent, and hearing it didn't hurt the way I thought it might, because by then I'd already rebuilt my spare room into a home gym, repainted the walls, reclaimed my space, and moved on. The sale became a neighborhood legend, something people still bring up at block parties, and I don't brag about it, but I don't apologize for it either, because what I learned is this: trust isn't blind, generosity isn't limitless, and love without boundaries isn't love. It's just convenience wearing a pretty face, and the next time someone tells me trust them or leave, I'll know exactly which option to choose, and I won't hesitate.